Assalamu alaikum everyone. On behalf of Code for Pakistan, I wish you all a very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us today at Jazz's Premier Tech Initiative SDG Hackathon 2019 in collaboration with Code for Pakistan and Open Islamabad. So while we were deliberating on the entire format of the hackathon, we thought let's have a dedicated event for women. So a women exclusive event. We wanted to highlight women in tech because they are breaking barriers, right? So we came up with the idea of having an exclusive event, which is why we organized the Women SDG Challenge Cup. And we've received a lot of applications. So it was absolutely encouraging for us to see that so many women are working in so many different spaces, and sometimes we don't even know, you know? So this is a great opportunity for not only the women participants, but for us as organizers as well. But before we begin the competition, we've also scheduled and organized a panel on women breaking barriers in tech. And we'll be having this panel as a precursor to our actual competition. And before we start with the panel discussion, I would like to request Ali Ibrahim from Jazz. He's looking after CSR to come on stage and say a few words to our entire audience.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's actually quite heartening to see all of you. We are also quite excited. So we started this journey last year when we organized the first edition of the SDG Hackathon. Just to put in context, the Sustainable Development Goals is a national agenda of the government of Pakistan, where we are one of the 142 nations globally who have committed ourselves to agree by this agenda and meet different goals by the year 2030, ranging from education to health to gender equality and everything. So last year, Hackathon was just primarily an encouragement to provide a platform to these young people who have some good ideas to address some of the SDG challenges, because SDGs is not just the responsibility of one entity, it's a collective responsibility of all. And this year, so it was quite a fantastic response last time around, and this time we have further expanded the portfolio. We are not just asking for ideas in the very initial stages, but we're also looking for ideas that are being implemented in different accelerators, incubators who are actually aligned with the SDG, and see how we can provide them with further resources to scale the businesses. So the SDG Challenge Cup is the second module of the overall ecosystem that we are supporting. And today, as my colleague from Code for Pakistan just mentioned, so we have a very exciting panel, and we have some experts who have been women tech entrepreneurs in their respective disciplines and have been doing fantastic work. So we would like to hear from them, and also we would like to ensure that, okay, as Jazz, how are we providing an enabling ecosystem for people, especially women in tech, how they can come forward and do a great thing. So I would like to introduce the moderator for the panel for today, Aisha Sarwari, who's heading the Communications and Sustainability portfolio. So Aisha, if I can request you. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you so much for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like my panel to please come on stage. We have Romila Hamid, CEO and founder, SMT and Impact. Sarah Faisal, Senior Ecosystem Manager for the APEC team at GSMA. Asif Aziz, Chief Commercial Officer at Jazz. Sadaf Khan, Co-founder and Director at Media Matters for Democracy. And of course, Noreen Hayat. Noreen, up with the Raja, please. She's the co-founder and the business head at Tees Financial Services. We have one extra seat. I think we'll ignore that. We'll leave that for the ghost in the room. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to just set up this scene for why we are doing this and why I insisted on this. And I also want to thank our partners, Code for Pakistan and Open Islamabad, for supporting us in doing this. 1% of Pakistan's entrepreneurs are women. Unfortunately, that's a number that I think we should all own and be part of. I think, yes, we are a very misogynist society. Yes, we have many barriers to entry. We have a terrible record of internalized misogyny as well, whereas women somehow think that patriarchy is actually the norm and that they should perpetrate it. How we've seen a lot of women who either inhibit themselves and keep quiet, or we've seen women who, sort of derive their power only through men, right? And so what we see in technology is a sort of three-factor cause for this 1%, in my opinion, and we'll ask the experts as well. The one cause for having such a low and dismal performance of women in technology and as entrepreneurs is because very few women get into STEM fields, right? So the first barrier is that you think that things like mathematics and technology, so there's this gender stereotyping getting into careers for women versus careers for men. I think the second reason is because men don't pull their weight in domestic chores, right? Sadaf is here. I don't know how many of you have seen her BBC piece where her and her husband talked about how they're working in the space of technology and running this amazing NGO. Yet at the same time, they both share the work of professional life and personal life. So Sadaf's wonderful husband, Asad, helps around the house, he babysits, and Sadaf and Asad, wherever they go, take their children, right? So they make child rearing not mothering, but they make child rearing parenting, which is part of both households. And she received a lot of hate mail for that. I mean, Asad was like praised, like what a wonderful man कि अपने बच्चों को बड़ा कर रहा है. But Sadaf was like, घर पे रहो, काम करो, बच्चों पे ध्यान दो. And the third reason I feel why women do not enter the world of power and technology and creativity is something that we call systemic discrimination. सबसे पहले आपको ID card या documentation बनाने के लिए कहीं जाना पड़ता है, ठीक है? So mobility is a problem, public transport is a problem, harassment is a problem. Then once you reach there, you need this thing called the permission culture, where men have to give you permission to do what you're doing, right? I mean, there are several things that even in the most sort of futuristic way we cannot do on our own. So given these three contexts, right, all of the people that you see here are extremely talented in the domains that they have worked in. They've broken barriers. I mean, from fintech to, media to just, in the area of essentially social impact. And I want to start asking them the question of what these three systemic issues are and how we can deal with them. And setting the agenda, before we move on to question and answers, I have two startups here that I'd also want to profile. And then we'll open the floor for questions. I would really encourage you to think very critically on what's stopping women from getting into tech. And I want us to sort of leave the room with a decision. So how many people here feel that the solution to the 1% of women in entrepreneurship is in technology? With a show of hands. Okay. And I want to take the same poll afterwards. Asif, I'll start with you, as the only man on the panel. First of all, how does that feel? Yeah. Asif's one of the chief people in Jazz, who obviously is extremely senior, is on the C-suite, and is extremely colorful. So he's always somebody who wears a lot of color, on him, and his wife dresses him, from what I understand. And he's extremely open and encouraging to women in his department and his role. And I felt that it's very important, of course, for women to see that, but also the men in the room to see the role modeling of a man who goes out of his way to ensure that the systemic disadvantages of women in technology are not there. So my rant ends here. Asif, how do we fix everything that I talked about?
Wow. Thank you, Aisha, and thank you so much for inviting me. It is a pleasure and honor to be discussing this. Actually, I think if I just stem it back from my perspective, I grew up in the UK. I was born and raised in London. I didn't see any prejudice. I didn't see black, white, female, male, gay, lesbian, old, young, disabled. I didn't see any of that. Because actually everybody is a factor of production. What can you deliver for me? Then I left the UK and I've worked in Arab and African cultures. And then this whole concept of it's a male-dominated society, everybody wears suits and the same tie. And that really puzzled me, because actually, how can you be representing 50% of the society if you're not representing 50% of the society in your room. So that, for me, was the first big mental challenge that we had. And then I have various departments. I have all the sales, marketing, customer care, all the products, pricing, and brand teams. And there are gender stereotypes. My sales team was 100% male. My brand team, alhamdulillah, that was 50% male. Customer care was probably 70% female. But they were very low, menial, repetitive tasks. Where the intelligence was needed, I wasn't getting the level of resource coming through. What I did do, though, is I brought in intellect. So we have an enormous team around decision sciences, data science, so the guys who are number crunching. Over there, can anyone guess what level of would be the female-male ratio in my team of analysts who sit there crunching data all day long? I have 26 of them. All they do is crunch through millions and millions of rows of data. What would be the female-male balance in that team? It's actually 70% is female. 70% of that is female. And we've actually actively worked with LUMS and some other universities to encourage children and girls to go and study mathematics and study these things, because there's an enormous amount of future in this. And I brought my daughter along. I was the usual father, and I would tell her to be a doctor. I now tell her to be a data scientist. And that's why she's here as well. So actually you have to encourage that. What I also did was I've put in female directors of sales, which was unheard of in Pakistan. And again, the model comes from my perspective of female sales directors in many of the European markets in which I worked. I've actually appointed the first, and I was really nervous when my first female sales director joined. We have 14 of them, they run regions. I was really worried. People were telling me, you know, apna number de degi. People will be calling her. She'll be harassed. She'll be constantly on, you know, you've got to be careful where she goes, which regions. So I had a whole bunch of security arranged for her as well. But in fact, she didn't need it. And she broke all those stereotypes and has done a wonderful job. Now I actually have 2 female sales directors at that level in the organization. This was unheard of maybe 18 months ago. Not only that, we've put in female area managers at that lower level. We've put in female managers at even a lower level who have to negotiate with our business partners. And my view was I didn't see male, female, whatever, tall, short. I don't see that. I see, here's the objectives and what are you going to do to achieve them. And I have to give that equivalence to everybody in order to be judged on merit alone. Meritocracy is what must prevail. If it prevails in your exams, it must prevail outside. So for us, it's all been about meritocracy. I'm conscious it's easier for females to be in the head office than in some of the other roles, but it's not been impossible. So we've put in females into more of the organization, into some of our more remote areas, and I've had no issues other than actually it's worked really well for me, and I'm a bit upset I can't do it faster and can't do it more.
What we see is very interesting. The moment somebody at the top is gender neutral, what happens is you see more women succeed. So it's not just a 50-50 when you're gender neutral, it's a 70-30, right? Round of applause for great decision making. And I think that wave that changed or brought women in decision making power places. A lot of C-level people, when they're asked, you know, why don't you have enough women? They're, oh, there's like a pretty good ratio of women and men, but those women are in non-decision making roles, right? So they're non-influential roles. They're clerical, they're secretarial, they are, you know, technical, and that's where we need to change. Whatever area of expertise we have, we also need to have the power. Can I request everybody to please have conversations outside the room, to turn their cell phones off, and also make sure that the door is closed, just in respect of the panelists. I want to take this question to set the tone, and Saira from GSMA, which is one of the leading world's organization when it comes to telecommunications and overall communications. Saira, can you set the tone for us? What is it like for women in a developing country and an emerging economy like Pakistan?
Yeah, sure. So just to give a brief intro on what GSMA is, if the audience is not aware. So we are just a trade body working for the interests of our members, mobile operators globally. And then yet again, we have a vertical which is called Mobile for Development. So under the umbrella of that, we have quite a lot of initiatives which obviously support women in the developing countries. So one of the initiatives that I would like to talk about here is Connected Women. So our vision is to reduce the gender gap in the low and middle income countries, making sure that the adaptation for the mobile internet and mobile financial services is improved when it comes to women. So we are present in 21 countries, and obviously we have 38 commitment partners which are operators. Now, just giving you a bit of data points which are quite shocking when it comes to Pakistan. GSMA published a gender gap report 2019, which is available on our website as well. According to that, Pakistan is, when it comes to gender gap, Pakistan is behind even India and Bangladesh. And there are 37% fewer women than men who own a mobile. We know the reasons for that, and we can discuss the barriers. There are 76% fewer women than men who have access to mobile internet, and shockingly, as high as 94% fewer women than men who have access to financial services. So this is quite shocking, and this initiative that GSMA has, we've been working in different markets to come up with initiatives where our mobile operators, the members, can support us in overcoming these barriers that are preventing these women to have even own a mobile phone and forget about access to mobile financial services and all. And speaking about Pakistan, in the context of Pakistan, we have one commitment partner as of now, and we are in discussions with Jazz as well, so that we can work together to come up with certain initiatives which can reduce this. Just a bit brief on what, in the context of Pakistan, what we've been doing with one of the partner, and we'll encourage Jazz in doing that so as well, is we are hiring female mobile money agents in rural and remote areas, because obviously it's a factor of trust that the women in these areas, and then also the approval from the family. Their husbands feel comfortable when the wives are going and getting collecting the money from over there. There are other initiatives too which we can obviously, but when we talk about Pakistan, the barriers that we see are actually access and learning and digital skills.
And who's coming between women and access and learning?
So for women, access and learning, obviously one is, if we talk about access, so 31% of the women, when we did our survey, actually the barrier that they identified of not owning a phone is the approval from the family. And the shocking part is that only 4% of the men declare it as a barrier at all. So this actually gives us a very clear picture of where we are when it comes to that. And yet again, we obviously work more on the digital financial services adoption and mobile internet. So one of the other barrier is also, the cost and the time it takes for a low-income family to reach out to a bank branch just to have a very small amount of transaction. And then in remote areas, it's culturally the women are, not allowed to go out that often. So these are actually the very, and then the obviously learning and digital skills, like you spoke about, women are discouraged when, we see a lot of discouragement when you see someone in, technology or, so GSMA also has one Tech for Girls program where we do these hands-on workshops to encourage young girls at a very young age, expose them to these technology, like you mentioned, STEM. So we would like in Pakistan, like I've discussed previously with you too as well, to host some Women for Tech initiatives, some Tech for Girls workshops, and obviously apart from other areas, mostly in rural and remote areas, so that awareness is also brought for them.
Thank you so much, Saira, for that horrific statistic of almost 90%, having those barriers. I spoke to somebody called Roshane Zafar. She's one of the pioneering women in fintech, as you're all aware. And I told her a lot of people think that when you give money to women, it causes violence in their household, especially in low-income women. And she said, actually, there's been study after study that says that's not true. There might be initial violence, right? So you know how 4% of the men said कि हम तो नहीं मारते.
Exactly. I mean, like 4% of
Yeah.
the men doesn't even, they
don't
acknowledge.
acknowledge it because there's no self-awareness that they're coming between them, and some of them don't even think that it's a problem, right? I mean, our society basically feels that that a woman is a product of a man, right? So if you shove your product around, it's totally okay. So she said that in the long-term study, a lot of people felt that women actually have households with reduced violence because when there is an income increase, suddenly the violence level in the household becomes more stable. And a lot of the women from that organization actually hired their husbands who earlier beat them up, but then they were the clerks in their organization. What kind of disruption, Noreen, I want to turn to you because, by the way, we met at the event where you were giving advisory to Queen Maxima about fintech in Pakistan. I was very impressed by how you turned the table around. ये जो disruption है, इसको हम कैसे लेके आए पाकिस्तान में?
Thank you so much, Aisha. Acha, disruption, see, it has to happen at a lot of levels. If I'm only to talk about tech, I think tech is just a medium. The roots are actually still much deeper, and it's very societal to begin with. And I completely agree with Asif and Cyrus' points.
Noreen, can you move the mic a little?
Sure, yeah. I completely agree with their points. You know, we've actually also conducted some studies, and we've actually seen, you know, to the point of the mobile, for example, you know, a woman is actually considered to be ethically indecent if she actually owns a phone. And, you know, we would understand from reasons that our society, the way our society operates, why they actually think that. The Economist Intelligence Unit they actually conduct study every year. It's called the Global Microscope, on how they look at financial services or an enabling environment for financial services around the world. And they cover about 137 countries. And they said with Pakistan, one of the bigger issues with gender disparity is two reasons. One, smartphones or, you know, phone coverage. Women do not own phones. And the other one is ID. They do not even have access to ID. You know, CNIC is something that is one of the biggest barriers when it comes to access to financial services. When you talk about a mobile, when you talk about an account, this is a bank account, 34% of Pakistan's males have a bank account as opposed to only 7% females. And, you know, it's been seen that the decisions that women take after they own a bank account, there's a wide disparity. When they have access to an account, they invest in businesses. They invest in businesses and use those proceeds to invest in their households. And, you know, those households actually help them spend in expenditures like, you know, health, education, you know, to your point of SDGs. So it's a direct contribution that women actually have on the sustainable development goals by just, you know, having access to these basic rights, I'd say. So I think it's, and we actually really promulgate the idea, you know, men with quality do not fear equality. And I think it's really important to have that support at your family level, because if you don't, it actually becomes really difficult for women to actually go out there and even, you know, be able to think about these dreams. Yeah. You know, interestingly, we did a survey in Sakkar, and we interviewed this woman. Her name is Khalda, and you know, we asked her what her dreams and aspirations are, and you know, what she said was just it was just heart melting. And she said, "We do not have the right to dream." So when you think about that, you know, it's alarming, because just having access to your own right can actually give you the power to even dream. Set aside the power to actually turn those dreams into reality. So I think it has to be, you know, starting from the grassroots, from within families and cultures. And I think, you know, to the point of where you talk about women being underrepresented, it's not only in Pakistan. The starking fact and the sad fact is it's actually across the globe. In Pakistan, yes, there are other cultural barriers that actually make it tougher, but it is the same case everywhere. Another very important thing when you actually come on to corporates or even businesses, we've seen that the presence of women in managements, in boards, you know, within teams can actually have huge impacts in the way company cultures are really set, the way products are really designed. For example, having more women on the board actually changes the way the governance is structured within a company. So, now we see these changes are being brought in and they're actually imperative. It's not only to have women representation within the board or the management. It's actually because having women representation changes the fabric of a company or the business or the society in general. So I think we need to start working towards these causes together. And I think to all the women out here, I think it's one thing that's really important is to have an unwavered grit, that passion. Because I see a lot of women start doubting themselves because they are, in lieu of getting accreditation from the men or even their families out there. So if you have, self-determination and confidence in what you really want, I don't think anything can stop you guys. So I think that's my 2 cents.
That's wonderful. We were at a very high-level panel where Noreen was the only woman on the table at one point, and all these men were like, giving somebody, telling them how the GDP of Pakistan will improve if you include women, etc., etc. So it was like somebody pointed out, I think Sadaf Fabid from Circle Women pointed out, all of you CEO men are here, and you didn't bring a woman, to represent this discussion. So that's what it is. You want to include women, but you don't want to pale yourself in the shadow of their power. And I think that's what's problematic. We've seen very opinionated women on boards, but what happens with them is that they get villainized into people who are not fitting into the culture, right? And so it's almost like you want to bring women in, but you don't want to change the culture. You just want to kind of tick off an SDG box, and that's not what women are. I think we're much more than that. I want to turn to you, Sadaf, because I think you're the one person who describes anger really well. Noreen ने explain किया कि एक औरत को सबसे पहले I think आपका point ये था कि एक औरत जब काम करती है या उसके पास पैसे आ जाते हैं, she's considered unethical. Let's not talk about it. Let's name the elephant in the room. Women are slut shamed. गलत औरत है, right? वो पैसे कमाती है, उसके पास cell phone आ जाता है. So automatically when a woman has the world to her, the assumption is that she will do something very honor, as a detriment to the honor culture of their family. Can you describe how limiting this is to Pakistani women? I think because statistics or ये सारी चीज़ें तो हम समझ सकते हैं, but what is it really like? Put that landscape to us.
So I'll go back to a study that I was conducting at this very same time last year. It was called She Connects, and we were looking at women-led tech businesses and trying to identify the key points or gaps that kind of push women out of the circle. And I should have known actually, but I was pretty surprised that the one constant that kept coming up was motherhood. And it was very weird. So women after women defined how becoming a mother kind of changed their relationship with their businesses. They talked about the lack of facilities, the lack of acceptance, the mom's guilt, the shaming that moms get for leaving kids at daycare, for not playing a part. But then even when they bore all of that, they also talked about, so we just sacrifice me time, we sacrifice self-development, and we put in more effort to make sure and show everybody that we can be the best at work and at home. And there was not a single person who talked about the fact that this is supposed to be a partnership, and the solution isn't for you to put beyond 100%, try to put in 200%, but to kind of include your family and your husband in particular into that conversation that makes sure that responsibilities at work and at home are shared. And I find that this particular logic and this particular line of thinking is seen as non-professional in Pakistan. If I talk about it on panels or there, people see me as a non-committed professional who's bringing in issues that are not so relevant maybe, or might be an issue that's short-lived till children start going to school. And it concerns me because almost all of you raised your hands when Aisha asked if is tech the solution. Yes, of course, it's a very important tool. It's an essential tool. But when you're talking about solutions, you also have to look at root causes. And if tackling a root cause was as simple as introducing a tool that's good enough, polio would have been eradicated in Pakistan a long time ago. Billions of dollars have been poured into the polio campaign over decades. We have seen all forms of campaigning, of whatnot, but we haven't seen an iota of work on behavioral change that would actually allow immunization to take place. So to think of behaviors and culture and values that we usually go through as something that's a minimal factor, that's not actually the trigger and that's not root, I think that's highly problematic, and it makes all the other efforts kind of pale. We can hold SDG cups and we can create amazing services for women, but in the end, if it's all linking back to the permission culture, if it's all bringing women back to a point where, you know, they put in 200% for 3 years, then they burn out. Because I'm related to media, a harrowing fact for the media industry in Pakistan right now, there are over 56 broadcast outlets, unnumberable print outlets. There's a single female editor. There's only one woman who's at the editorial position, and she leads the digital side.
She doesn't actually lead the powers.
She doesn't lead the broadcast. So Sama Digital is headed by Mahim Meher, an amazing person. And if you go back to university, 70% plus of the graduates are actually women. They're getting all the positions. They perform better academically when they're entering the work field. So I get an equal number of men and women when I'm hiring interns. But as soon as they start getting married, as soon as they start having children, the workspace and I'm sure their families don't rise up to the challenge. Which brings me to anger. Just last week, me and my husband were invited by a very weird show, which we should have said no to because it was a morning show, but we went there anyways.
That's your fault. If you show up at a morning show.
Yeah, that is completely on me. So the anchor is talking about, you know, why it's important for women to be in the work field, and we're like, you know, it's not just important for the family, it's important for the country. We are 51%, or used to be, but still we are around 50%. And they start taking calls, and I get, you know, questions that are so angry again and again. A woman comes up and she says, oh, I don't mind women working, but अगर मेरी बहू काम करने की वजह से बच्चे नहीं पैदा करी तो 2-4 बच्चों के बाद मेरी नस्ल ख़त्म हो जाएगी. I'm like, what? And then this man comes in.
Have you told her about this genetic program that allows her to save her genes in a tube?
I mean, there's already 2-4 bache. Like, I don't know what kind of gene pool she wants, but anyways. Then this man comes on and he's like, when my friend's wife was not earning well, she was very nice. Now she's earning more. So she's very battamiz. And she wants to have a say in every decision in the house. And that's battamizi. And the most infuriating thing for me was when all these questions were thrown. The anchor didn't ask me. She asked my husband. I said, आप बताएं, आपके घर में ये मसले होते हैं, आपकी बेगम ने कभी आपसे ज़्यादा कमाया है तो आपको कैसा फील होता था? And I was like, this is like, she's literally saying, मेरी बहू बच्चे नहीं पैदा करी, and you are asking my husband to respond to this question.
Well, because Sadaf, there's also Mrs. Khan phenomenon. Yeah. Right? I mean, we're talking about women in tech, but we have to understand that bias and prejudice, it doesn't require a gender. I mean, bias, prejudice, and anti-women hate is perpetrated by both genders.
Yeah, but you know, because all of you are here, what I do and what I would advise you to do, harness that anger, turn it into productivity, have the conversations, own the Battamiz label, which is what I do at my home, outside my home.
Congratulations. Round of applause for a Battamiz woman right here. Romila, आपने जो जर्नी क्रिएट की है वो इन सारी जर्नी से ज़्यादा और ज़्यादा बड़ी है. मेरे लिए आपके लिए इतनी रिस्पेक्ट है जब मैंने आपकी स्टोरी सुनी. Romila was somebody who was literally and physically buried under the rubble of the Kashmir earthquake. And here she is today, a CEO, right? और ये जो जर्नी है, हम जो इसकी वोकैबुलरी की बात कर रहे हैं, अब्यूज़ ऑफ पावर की बात कर रहे हैं, या उसकी बात कर रहे हैं कि एक औरत को कैसे पेट्रियार्की को हटा के अपने आप के अंदर सेल्फ बिलीफ लाने की ज़रूरत होती है. आपने ये सारा कुछ इतनी यंग एज में और इतनी डिफ़िकल्ट सर्कमस्टांसेस में कैसे कर लिया?
Thank you so much for having me in this amazing panel. So I would start from my educational career. I came from accountancy background, having my master degree in accountancy, and did my MCom in late 2014. So then I moved toward employment opportunities to find something reasonable for me to make myself independent. I got an opportunity in Telenor Open Mind project as a finance officer, and then later on I moved toward a development sector. So I worked with them on a project enabling women with disability for decent employment. And that was the most biggest challenge for me, to identify multiple women in Pakistan who are living with some kind of disabilities. When I started my education, many people from my family said to my parents that why are you wasting your time? She's a girl on wheelchair and with disability. And that was the most painful situation for me. Even I was in a devastating situation after 2005. So my father took a decision and he said, no, she can do each and everything. And she's not just a girl, she's a person as well. So I completed my 6 year of education on wheelchair, and after completing that education, despite a lot of difficulties, infrastructure problem, accessibility issues, and there was no reasonable accommodation inside my college, I started a job hunt. I found a job for 3 to 6 months. Then later on, moving in development sector was the biggest change in my life. I met many amazing women across Pakistan with disability. As we talk about that, women in Pakistan are a marginalized group. But especially when we talk about women with disability, they are facing multiple discrimination on the basis of gender and disability.
Romila, can you pause there and tell us sort of the disabilities? Because look, जैसे privilege होता है ना, मर्दों को कभी कभी नहीं पता होता कि वो अपना privilege abuse कर रहे हैं, उसी तरह कभी कभी औरतों को नहीं पता होता. What is it like when an able-bodied person, you know, doesn't understand your disability or the women in Pakistan's disability? थोड़ा सा उसको ऊपर elaborate करें.
बिल्कुल ऐसा ही है. As we are working toward to SDGs, good health and well-being, goal number 3 and goal number 8, decent work and economic growth. So the reason to start SMT self-management startup is to break the barriers that are attitudinal, behavioral mindsets of the society. So in Pakistan, mostly people see you as a person with disability, not as a person. They judge you on different stereotypes that she's a girl, she can't do anything. But despite these are things, if I'm running this startup, I just focusing on one thing, to improve the skills of other people with disabilities across Pakistan by providing them different type of training programs, digital literacy, vocational and business skills to make them independent. That physical disability is not a major problem, but the mindset that people have. So I only focus on one thing, that disability is not a burden but a different lifestyle. Yeah.
How did you decide that it's not a burden?
It takes a lot of courage to understand about the behavior problem in the society, then the barriers that are infrastructural and many other as well. So when I took the decision of my education, I came to know that there are million people in Pakistan who cannot afford quality education, and I'm so much lucky. Then I said thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for providing me this kind of opportunity to enhance my skills, abilities in education as well. So that was the first step in my life.
So you used gratitude,
Yeah.
To power you.
Yes.
And I think that's phenomenal and fantastic. Sarah, I'll come to you and I'll tell you, and I'll ask you basically what would require to be changed in particularly, like how do we make women powerful, right? And how do we give them money? And how do we give them power? Because I think a lot of women, when they want to come into the workforce or they want to contribute to, the workforce, the first thing they think about, पहले मैं जब मैं जैसे ही घर आऊँगी तो घर वाले खुश रहें, चाय बना के जल्दी से दे दूँ, वो ठीक रहे and all of that, right? But they don't own that power as an individual, right? So what I'm talking about is the vision of a CEO woman who doesn't need to burn the candle from both angles, because how you end up getting the worst of both worlds. आप जब domesticity छोड़ते हैं तो वहाँ पे भी ship sink हो जाती है, और जब आप काम करते हैं तो वहाँ पे भी आपको undermining feel होती है. So what are some of the advisory, because I know GSMA does a lot of policy advisory for women to change that, mindset to change the system as well?
Okay, so if you talk about, obviously we're talking about in the context of developing countries because GSMA actually works more hands-on on that. Like I mentioned before, it begins at a young age. If you have to mentor a young girl, exposure to technology, okay, exposure to all the management skills. So GSMA also has a training toolkit for all these young girls and even working women who want to take some input from in there. It's available online as well. One is that while you are growing up, exposure to that. Second is acceptance in obviously the society, but otherwise it comes from the mindset of where you are working, the culture of the organization that you are going to, obviously, and the culture of your household too. Okay, they are not independent of each other. Like, I am a working woman, I am married, I have kids. We all have faced discrimination on both the sides.
You also come from a province that
Yeah, I belong
typically
to
does
KPK.
not. Yeah, it doesn't typically belong. The permission culture is harder
Exactly.
there.
So I belong to KPK. I have a lot of people in the family who were like against me going to co-education. Who were, I was, when I started working, people in the family, like, they gossip and everything. And I'm like, okay, fine, she's working. I had a very supportive father. I had a very supportive husband. Lucky me. But then I see a lot of women who, even a few of the friends who are struggling. They're not allowed to work. They can go out as many times as they want. They're not allowed to work because the perception of the corporate culture, the working woman, it has to improve. Generally, it doesn't have to be what GSMA is doing in the context of, बाद में तो rural areas की तरफ तो और भी problems हैं, but even we people living in big metropolitan cities,
even they face problems.
We face a lot of problems, and like I faced so much discrimination when I started working, but obviously when I got married, I came from KPK and this culture, so I'm going out. Initially when you get married, so I asked my husband, like, I'm going out with my friends, so can I go? And he's like, he was at office, and he's like, listen, you are an adult, you don't need to ask me, just tell me where you're going,
not
if
your
you feel like,
babysitter, right?
Yeah. So I was like, just nahi shaadi hui hai, maybe he's just trying to be nice. The second time I asked him, he's like, I'm very serious. You don't have to ask me. And since then, he's supported me everywhere. I've heard a lot of criticism about me. I was discussing with you this other day. I used to go working in this market from a vendor side to organizations, or वापस निकलती थी, टायर पंचर होते थे 3-3 गाड़ी के. I faced a lot of these things. Sometimes, I used to get discouraged, but then you have this support system at home who's encouraging you. I'm not saying that, it's everywhere. There are a lot of supportive
that
people.
I think the toolkits have to be done really early. The interventions have to be early. Asif, you have 2 beautiful daughters. One of them is here. I'm a big fan of both of them, by the way. What did you do for that toolkit for your daughters? What do you make sure that they get?
So alhamdulillah, I'm proud father of 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I forgot the little one.
There's one even younger. But actually, what I've been embedding into them is this no notion of male, female. It's study as much as you can, do whatever you're interested in. And actually, we've been putting in that culture from a very early age. That was drummed into me by my father. I was a brother to 3 sisters. And my father treated all 4 of us in the same. So if I went out, they were allowed to go out. If I went to university, they went to university. So whatever I did, they could do. And I think that was embedded into me many years ago, which I've now embedded into my children and into my daughters. So actually, I've been encouraging them to be themselves.
So you really feel that the attitude toolkit is the most important, the behavioral change that Sadaf talked about, rather than exposing them to tech, or that they'll figure out on their own. You just have to tell them it's an equal level playing field.
It's an equal playing field.
There's no permission for anything. You make your right moral decisions.
And it's meritocracy. You make your own decisions. It's your life. It's your right. In fact, it is your God-given right to make your own decisions. So that's the education and upbringing we give them.
So there's 2 kinds of male feminists. One is the male feminist who learns from the mother. So the mother is a working woman. She goes out, she faces discrimination, and then that male realizes to be, an equal person, treat people equally. Then there's the male feminist who learns from his daughters, right? I think that, you know, it's very important to learn from your wives and your peers as well, because that combines both those pains, and that makes you sort of realize, not out of necessity and need, but makes you realize that it's important to have equality because of society. Because then you don't need to give your wife power. You actually can pull it out, but you do. And I know that your wife is an incredible woman who has that equality of power as well. And I think before I open the floor for questions, the most important thing is that you can't go do this alone. I think we've all had stories where we've recognized that Romila's father, you know, Sadaf's husband, you know, your dad, I'm sure a lot of people in your family as well. You know, there's always somebody who has given up their power for somebody else, right? Some man who shared his power. Before I move on, I wanted to open the floor for questions, but can I request our two startups to come forward and just give us a very brief of their startup journey? Please come forward. We've nominated you. I'll just read their bios as they come along. So we have Tuba Bakar. She's the co-founder of Ain. And there's Ramsha Yunus, the founder of Dextrek. So I guess one of you can, you know, I'll give you my mic. Oh, that's a mic right there. Tuba, how hard was it to enter the world of tech at such a young age? And what were your barriers? And do you have anything to say to the panelists?
Yes, first of all, assalamu alaikum everyone, and assalamu alaikum to all of you. You guys are amazing and are inspiring to me. The thing is that I come from a college. I had my education at EME NUST. It was a male-dominated society. I mean, I think the mechanical department had a strength of 300 students, and there were 4 females. So that's the ratio we come from. So yes, we had to see the issues really up close and personal, and I think that actually empowered me and everyone in that college to how to stand up for ourselves and how to make a mark in that society at a very, you know, early age. So what I would want to say is that I have been fortunate. My family is really supportive. But see, because I was in a society where multiple people were present, I could also understand the pains of, you know, girls coming from backgrounds that were not so open. So I could understand how, you know, they had issues with their fathers and their brothers and all those restrictions and all. I think the biggest issue is that we have incredible women, but we don't have them as role models. They're not out there. So we need something, or I think the biggest solution would be to actually put all of you guys out there, you know, nationally, openly, have your stories told to everyone, to the grassroots level, where every girl can be inspired about these women working in STEM fields and making impact. So I think the only issue I've faced was having a role model that early on.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I would take that question to the panel and ask you each to please mention your female role models and why. So just the name and why that person's your role model. Romila ko de dijiye.
So for me, my mother, as she started a school in our village, and that was the only one school where we also educated from all provinces in Pakistan. As you know, that education is much more important. And in Baghdad, Kashmir, that was the only one step which she taken back in 1990 around. So उन्होंने हमेशा मुझे एक बात सिखाई थी कि अगर हम एक लड़की को एजुकेट करते हैं, we can educate the whole society. So despite all the difficulties, if I'm educated, I can survive easily in the society. So I can earn, I can live. तो उसके बाद मुझे पता चला कि एजुकेशन की इम्पोर्टेंस कितनी ज़्यादा है. तो उनको मैं अपना रोल मॉडल इससे समझती हूँ. अम्मी का नाम सादिया है. So उन्होंने उसी गांव के अंदर 2 स्कूल चलाए थे. पहला जब वो स्टार्ट किया, so एक स्टूडेंट उनके पास था. Then with the passage of time, फिर 10 हुए, 12, और now अब उस विलेज के अंदर 2 स्कूल हैं. So
और टोटल स्ट्रेंथ कितनी है दोनों स्कूल्स की?
अभी तो काफ़ी ज़्यादा है, अराउंड 1000 प्लस लोग वहाँ पे
round of
एजुकेशन ले रहे
applause,
हैं.
that's
Yes.
amazing. Also, your female model.
So growing up in the UK, I had Margaret Thatcher and Queen Elizabeth, 2 women running Great Britain during the 80s.
And both of them were kind of battameez. Sadaf.
Yeah, I think for me, my mother again. My father passed away when I was 16, and we were 5. My youngest sister was 1 year old. My mother had never worked a day in her life. She was like a typical overly protected woman, and she brought all of us up. Like the 5 of us are now in positions that, and I know that she had to face a lot of ke bin baap ki bachi ko media jaisi field mein bhej rahi ho and stuff, and she bore that, and like it broke her a lot of times. But I saw her going through that, and it kind of empowered me to take that power.
What's her name?
Her name is Amna, and she's amazing. Yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, for me it has to be my mother as well. And the best part is she's not educated. We belong to KPK. But all along, the way she supported all my decisions, even now she helps me out. I have to travel, I have to go somewhere, she takes care of my kids. I mean, like, and she had to face the criticism from the family, you know, beti ja rahi hai co-education mein, acha ab ye job bhi kar rahi hai, and all that. Now she comes to me, now she's very proud, and like there are people in the family, she comes to me that, you know, वो फलां कह रहा था कि if you can look for a job for his son and all that.
Suddenly after the power, everybody becomes your friend, right?
But my mother, I mean, like, she's not educated, but the way she has stood up for us, and like she took that criticism, and sometimes she used to, you know, not even tell me कि discourage now and all that. You know how our mothers go through all this in the family when you belong to that. But yeah, that's why she's my role model.
So I think direction here is, I think education is an attitude. Right?
Exactly,
and I think
that's an attitude.
Extremely educated,
Exactly.
because you know you see a lot of people from Harvard Business coming in and actually blocking women from getting ahead. So
exactly. So I actually wanted to make this point that the perception that people have कि पढ़ी लिखी नहीं है तो she doesn't know anything.
And
but
what's her name?
It's not Ismat.
All right.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, you know, for sure, I think all women, mothers especially, should be role models for all the great work they do, especially with supporting, you know, women like yourselves. 2 women for me. One is Greta Bull. She's the head of this organization called CGAP. CGAP is this group that works for financial inclusion around the world. It's a World Bank's group, and she has literally steered financial inclusion across all countries. From, you know, to sacrifice her personal life. You know, she had to go through a lot of challenges in her life to stand at where she is right now, only so that she could stand up for a cause much wider than her own self.
And the other person?
The other person, and I, you know, it's ironic that it relates to recent events, but Queen Maxima is someone I've been following for a long time, because, you know, her role, she, for most of us who don't know, she's the special advocate to the UN Secretary General for Financial Inclusion. And despite the fact that she belongs to royalty, she's actually worked so closely on ground, giving up a lot of her liberties that she could actually otherwise go for, to support a cause that I'm actually working for very closely as well. So yes.
It's amazing. She is actually a queen. Like when you see her, she has the aura of a queen. She's beautiful. She's fantastic. But she also is very, very human. You know, extremely human. You can just walk up to her and talk to her, and that's, I think, the true mark of a queen, right? Thank you for asking that question. I'm going to request you to give your colleague the startup seat, and we'd like to introduce Ramsha Yunus, the founder of Dextrek. Ramsha, same question. Tell us about your journey and how hard was it as a woman in tech?
Right, so firstly, I'd like to thank you all for having me here, plus all of you inspiring people. It's great to hear you and meet you all. So I'll just start with what we're doing. Me and my team, Dextrek, we're designing upper limb prosthetics for amputees, basically, in layman terms, robotic hands. Firstly, this cause resonates with me on a very personal level because in Pakistan, especially the kind of budget that we're spending on our defense. So most of the people and all the terrorist situations, we in our daily life, in the traffic signals or everywhere, we see a lot of amputees. But there's no specific field or no person dedicatedly working on that part. As for the challenges in tech and as...
Can I request you to give us an overview? What are we looking at in terms of people who need bionic arms or, robotic arms?
In Pakistan, so basically there are more than 50,000 plus amputees, just upper limb amputees in Pakistan.
Most of them won't be reported though.
Yes,
These are the reported
definitely.
numbers.
These
They're
are
much more.
yes, these are just the reported terms. And to be honest, the people who are from the defense institutes, they hide a lot of data because of certain, obviously, the security issues. So we don't get that number out, but that number is really, really big. These numbers, these are just the people who are effectees of day-to-day accidents or terrorist activities or stuff like that. So we have a very big market, but there is no indigenous solution available over here.
You know, it makes me really sad because sometimes we put up these ugly-looking national monuments for billions of rupees, and we don't have that money to give amputees.
Yes.
So your journey in women in tech, like from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most horrible and difficult, how difficult was it?
To be honest, I'll rate it somewhere around 7 or 8. Although I come up from a very, very progressive family, alhamdulillah, but as everybody, most of the underlying issues were the family actually, because on a personal level, we don't care about what our neighbors say or what a third person is saying, but what really gets to us is what our family or what the person really close to us thinks about us. So again, the elephant in the room is that yes, we do like to project our families very, very progressive because that's a personal, that's on a personal level. We like to shelter our families. But it's very, very important to firstly address whether the support that you're getting from your family was like on a 0-0 effort scale, or you got it after doing certain discussions or certain steps that you had to take, and you had to become that rebellious child in your house who hears a lot from the parents and then eventually they give in. So that's really important. And that does not mean that as a child you don't love your parents or you don't respect your parents. I believe that the true definition of love is to firstly acknowledge the downsides of the person that you're loving, look into it, and then try to remedify it. And if you can't do that, at least stand up to it. So that's really important.
I'm very grateful you said that. Because I think हम पे इतना बड़ा धब्बा लगता है जब हम rebel करते हैं, और हम we lose a lot of ourselves, and then we don't talk about this thing called toxic relatives, right?
Yes.
There's this thing called toxicity. आपके पास power है, आप parent हैं, आप एक बच्ची को fly करा सकते हैं. मिलाला के बाप को किसी ने पूछा था ना, they were like, how did you have such a wonderful daughter? So he said, I didn't do anything, I just didn't clip her wings. उसके पर नहीं काटे मैंने. और हमारे society में ये समझा जाता है कि अगर किसी की पावर को आप रोन दो नहीं तो वो बहुत बड़ी बात है, you know, but that's nothing to be bragging about. What do you do? I think all of us have faced toxic relatives, and I think it's very important because what happens is women fight for their rights, but when they come across somebody toxic who's a relative who is emotionally very close to them, a husband, a mother, a father, वो जो कहते हैं ना सांप आस तीनों में होते हैं. I mean, ऐसी बात नहीं है हमें प्यार नहीं करते, लेकिन वो हमारी इंडिविजुअलिटी ब्लॉक भी कर सकते हैं. फिर क्या करें? So रोमिला, आप explain करें, and this is for advice for young women who have somebody who will block them. What do you do then?
So some from my family, he's very close to me. उन्होंने मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा रोका था फ्रॉम एजुकेशन और ये सारे प्रोसेस से. और इवन इन पाकिस्तान अगर हम वीमेन विद डिसेबिलिटी की बात करें तो बहुत ज़्यादा बैरियर्स उनको फेस होते हैं फ्रॉम देयर फैमिलीज़. तो उसी फैमिली के अंदर मेरे एक भाई हैं जिन्होंने मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा सपोर्ट किया, मेरे अब्बू ने, मेरी अम्मी ने. एंड वो भाई हमेशा कहते हैं कि तुम निकलो घर से, तुम कर सकती हो, तुम्हारे अंदर कॉन्फिडेंस है, तुम इंडिपेंडेंट हो जाओ. तो मेरे ख्याल से अगर इन्हीं फैमिलीज़ के अंदर एक हमारी बैक पे एक अच्छा इंसान या कोई भी भाई हो सकता है, आपके फादर हो सकते हैं, वो आपको सपोर्ट करते हैं तो यू कैन अचीव एनीथिंग. लेकिन घर से निकलने के बाद आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी भी डबल हो जाती है. यू हैव टू प्रूव योर सेल्फ एज वेल. तो आपने उनको रिटर्न में एक अच्छा इम्पैक्ट देना है कि आप वाकई कुछ जाके कर रहे हो. सो फॉर मी दैट वाज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज, क्योंकि मैं फाइनेंशियली डिपेंडेंट थी अपनी फैमिली पे, फिज़िकली भी डिपेंडेंट थी फैमिली पे. सो बोथ सिचुएशन व्हेन यू आर डिपेंडेंट फिजिकली एंड फाइनेंशियली, सो मेक्स यू ए लॉट ऑफ सिचुएशन कि आपको बहुत ज़्यादा एक टेरिबल कंडीशन में ले जाता है. तो उस टाइम पे मैंने ये अपने साथ एक अहद किया कि आई शुड डू समथिंग वेरी प्रोडक्टिव जो मेरी फैमिली के लिए भी अच्छा हो, सो आई जस्ट वर्क हार्ड. मैंने अपनी एजुकेशन कंप्लीट की और वो सारा प्रोसेस एंड आई एम डूइंग अमेजिंग. और पाकिस्तान के अंदर बहुत सारी वीमेन है जिनके लिए मुश्किल होता है घरों से निकलना. सो आई वुड से कि हम उनको इनकरेज करें, नॉट इन पाकिस्तान बट नेशनल लेवल, इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे जाके दे शुड रिप्रेजेंट पाकिस्तान इन अ डिफरेंट वे.
Thank you. Asif, what you do with toxic parents or toxic spouses?
Yeah, so this is my father faced this with my sisters when they wanted to go to university because this was just not the norm. But my father was very progressive and my mother, and they said whatever Asif has done, the others will do as well. So all three of my sisters also went to university, but my mum's brothers and everybody, and I look back at it now, and I've just been reflecting as people are talking. I think they were jealous deep down. I think they didn't want these girls to be more educated than their sons. I think there was envy. I think there was something in that which was holding them back. But my parents didn't listen, and they insisted.
Sadaf?
Yeah, this not listening, I think that's very important. Um, the
It comes at a
toxic-
cost. You
Yeah.
lose something.
You lose something, yes, it comes at a high cost, especially when you are young, when you are growing up. Like now I'm at that age that it doesn't really matter. If somebody says something to me, I can just, ignore it. But when I was growing up, it took a huge toll on my mental health and everything. And I think one thing we miss out on in this conversation is the importance of female friendship. I'm a big introvert. I don't have many friends. But when I do make friends, and I'm sure it's true for all of you too, there's always this, if you have such toxic culture at home, find somebody outside that support structure who can just support you. Because in the end, we have to find our inner strength, and that support structure simply has to be there to pull us up when we're going down. So I would say if somebody in the family is very toxic and you have to constantly rebel again and again against your parents sometimes, or siblings, or the pressure that's coming in from the extended family, find someone. And it's a conscious effort, and it's not very sexy, Friendships are supposed to happen. We're supposed to click. But sometimes it's important to find that one person who can bring in that positivity, who can just help you pull yourself up when you are at your lowest. I think that does help.
It's fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk from personal experience. So yes, obviously, I mean, like we all have had someone supportive
But
in the
what do you
family.
do with the toxic person? So Sadaf says walk away.
Exactly. So what you do is, first of all, show your persistence to the people who believe in you and block the negativity. Like, move away. And obviously it does take a toll on you when you're young. Abhi to, like she mentioned, I don't give a damn. But back then when I was growing up, it does, like, why are these people talking so negative? And the atmosphere of even your own house, because they come, they talk, and it does affect sometimes even your supportive parents, that maybe and all that. But you need to show your persistence. You need to show that this is what you want, this is what you're dedicated to do, and then obviously the supportive person is going to do it. But I agree with Sadaf, like, just block them. I mean, like, they will come to you based on my personal experience. They will appreciate you when you reach a certain level, which is sad. But then you do feel proud that these were the people who discouraged me,
And you
and
converted
now,
society.
exactly.
Yeah. Noreen?
I think I would second both Sadaf and Sarah, but it's a little more complicated, I think. And there are two elements to it. First, you're talking about the people, like, Asif mentioned here. If you talk about the parents of the households themselves, for them to begin with, it's very important to start understanding that just pleasing societies and just so that you can just protect your kids is not the way to go about it. Because I think some of the reasons actually stem from the insecurity that they gather from the societies around them, which is why they take certain decisions for their kids that they wouldn't have otherwise. So I think it's time to realize that, it's high time actually. You need to trust your kids and not cut their wings. But if you are to talk from the perspective of an individual, I think yes, perseverance is most important. I have been very, very fortunate for the support that I've had. So maybe I'm not the perfect person to really even comment on this.
But
yes,
if you say your dad was toxic and he didn't let you out the house, what would you do?
it would have been very tough for me. But I still, I can relate to it in a way because so all my life I was actually becoming a doctor. I actually switched my careers. And I still remember, my parents for the longest time, they were very unsure of what I was really doing. And I really, for that span, I think they were probably thinking, I've gone mad. I've, actually really switched careers that I could have actually really succeeded in. But with time, I just stuck to, my cause and with resilience. And when they started seeing the results, things actually fell into place. But the point was you really have to remain determined for that cause. And then I think the whole world really conspires for you to get there.
That's wonderful. I hope that makes your 8 out of 10 feel better, right? And I'm sorry you had to go through that, but we also are really afraid that what if a woman fails, right? But so what if a woman fails? Men fail all the time. I don't know if you've seen Donald Trump's Twitter, right? I'll open the floor for 2 questions and then we'll close. पूछें आपने देखा कि इन्होंने कितनी bravery और vulnerability से चीज़ें आंसर की हैं. आप भी पूछें. I'm sure there's something about them. Yes, right in the back. आप थोड़ा आगे आ जाएंगे. I'll give you a mic, then everybody can hear you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shireen Kiran, and first of all, I really appreciate all that has been set up. I'm actually a software engineer, and I'm the only girl in my family who is in tech, who got out for the university, and I also have been to London last year for my project, and everything you people have discussed, I have faced in my life, and still I'm going on, and yes, like you people have grown up and I'm in the growing stage and I have faced a lot of, you can say, mental health distortion and while I'm progressing. So, Sarah have been talking about that we have to empower the women by giving them exposure of technology and management. I also want to do something for this, for the women in my town or maybe in my family or in my friends. But I think we have to define the ways for this too. So any ideas you people have, or is there something which is working on it, that how can we give exposure to the women in the urban areas, rural areas, and are in remote, staying at their homes, and how better we can make this possible? Thank you.
Yes, okay. I have a little, sure. So the good thing is that there are now organizations out there who are actually working towards this cause. Sadaf Abed, she runs an organization called She Loves Tech, and Circle. So they're really working for female tech entrepreneurship. And it's a great program where they're training females, in tech, and they're actually helping them to come onto, the actual workforce. So, other than that, there are lots of other organizations that are really working out there. So I think you really need to identify those spaces because work is now fortunately happening towards it and people are really realizing the need for it. The other good thing is even within the government and the regulatory bodies, a lot of support is now being given to this particular cause. For example, the State Bank of Pakistan has actually come up with some funding for women who are actually running companies or who are actually lead roles within companies. So lots of work is actually happening there. You just need to explore. But the good thing is you have options there. So try exploring. You have all of us here. We can support in any way to decipher ways of getting wherever you want. We'd be happy to help.
And at that note, I just wanted to say, आपने नाम क्या बताया था? Oh, sorry, you're right here. First of all, I'm so glad you talked about mental health, right? And the thing is that when women are put down, they're hitting a part of you that's very vulnerable and irreplaceable. ठीक है? वो जो आपका confidence होता है वो एक दफ़ा चला जाता है वापस नहीं आता. आपको फिर rebuild करना पड़ता है. Yeah. So the fact that you're here and you have access to all these mentors and this is why they're here. Ask us, we will give you lots of time for free. We love that, right? And that's what we're here for. Sarah, what maybe 2-3 avenues can you give her right now?
Okay, sorry, her name? Shameen, so well done, you're here, despite all the negativity that you faced, and I can totally relate to you. What I can offer to you is that GSMA has a lot of initiatives. I discussed them briefly, but we have Women for Tech initiative, we have ICT for Girls, which is hands-on workshop for young girls, and in STEM area, it has arts, math, all this. We would be working in collaboration with the operators, our members in Pakistan. So stay tuned to the space here. We are working on certain initiatives where you can get in touch with me, and I'll make sure that we target those areas that you are mentioning. You can invite your friends, family, all the young girls, and then Women for Tech is mostly to do. We do provide mentors, models, mostly for working women in the technology space. We have certain discussion groups where you can join in. You can discuss your problems openly. We have experts over there who can help you with real life solutions. So these are on top of 2-3 things that I can support you with. And like Aisha mentioned, we are here to help.
Does anybody want to take responsibility for mentoring her today, out of you? And what I mean is that take her along the course of until she becomes a CEO. All right, so you have 5 of them right here. All right, but do follow it up. And I think success belongs to those who show up. If there are no more questions, can we wrap? There's one more, very quickly. Jay.
Can I ask from here? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. This is Nayab and I'm the founder Nayab's Rogue. I'm belonging to KPK Peshawar. I'm running a social enterprise by the name of Nayab's Rogue, which work for women empowerment. Currently we are trying to solve 2 problems. In KP in Peshawar, there are a lot of females who are manufacturing a very good product, but they don't have the market where to sell it. So we are helping them we are helping them start their business, and we are helping them to build their brands. So for this, आज मैं यहाँ पे कंपटीशन के लिए चैलेंज के लिए नहीं आई, मैं फ्रेंड के साथ आई हूँ, लेकिन आप लोगों की बातें मैंने सुनी, सो दैट्स व्हाई आई एम आस्किंग दिस क्वेश्चन. वी आर फेसिंग सो मेनी चैलेंजेस. वी आर वर्किंग अभी जो हैं हम प्रोजेक्ट्स कर रहे हैं यूएनडीपी के साथ कोलैबोरेशन. अभी हमारी जो न्यू मर्ज डिस्ट्रिक्ट है फाटा, तो वहाँ की फीमेल्स वो बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छे प्रोडक्ट्स बनाती हैं, लेकिन उनके पास मार्केट नहीं है कि हम अपने प्रोडक्ट को कहाँ पे सेल आउट करें. सो आप सबसे मेरी क्वेश्चन है कि हाउ यू गाइस कैन हेल्प अस कि हम जो है उनकी स्किल्स को किस तरीके से प्रमोट कर सकते हैं.
जी, थैंक यू. क्वेश्चन बहुत अच्छा, आई लाइक इट. बट एक्चुअली फर्स्ट प्रॉब्लम आपका है कि वो जो सिंपल मार्केटिंग अवेयरनेस का प्रॉब्लम है ना, आप सोशल मीडिया के ऊपर थोड़ी सी अवेयरनेस कराओ. सेकेंडली वो जो है ना कमर्शियल जो ट्रांजैक्शन होता है, how will the money come back to the right person? यहाँ पे आप सिंपल माइक्रो फाइनेंस या जैज़ के साथ या जैज़ कैश के साथ ना पैसे ट्रांसफ़र भी हो सकते हैं. सो ये भी प्रॉब्लम ख़त्म हो जाता है. तो फर्स्ट चीज़ है कि आपके पास एक प्रोडक्शन है, एंड सेकंड आपके पास एक मार्केट है. अब आपको पता नहीं कि मार्केट किधर है, सो यू हैव टू क्रिएट दैट अवेयरनेस कि मार्केट इधर है और उस कस्टमर को पता हो कि प्रोडक्ट यहाँ से अवेलेबल है. एक दफ़ा उसने ऑर्डर कर लिया और फाइनेंशियल पेमेंट हो चुकी है, कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ जाती है. एक्चुअली यही काम ना इस वक्त दराज, अली एक्सप्रेस, वो भी सब यही कुछ कर रहे हैं ना. वो मिडिल में बैठे हुए प्रोडक्ट है और एक कस्टमर है. कस्टमर को पता है कि मैंने यहाँ जाके ये प्रोडक्ट ले लेना है. So you just need to allow these women to have a portal to be able to make them aware on social media and start getting their awareness into other areas.
Asif, I'll just follow that up, and then we also have to close. FATA or these areas basically have energy challenges, mobility challenges. It's a security challenge as well. So, how do you get over that?
So FATA में थोड़ा सा है, पर लेकिन it's getting better. It's getting much better. Recently we had some more sites that were allowed to be opened. But actually I was thinking more also Peshawar and KPK and other regions as well. So you can actually start small, start somebody getting success, and then take it. Ji.
We're a little out of time, so one comment and then we close. Yeah, go ahead.
So, the good thing is JICA, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, is working with the Women's Development Department of the government we're actually working on a project with them, particularly to enhance, to build a market for female home-based workers. And middlemen is one of the biggest issues that exists right now for marketing their products. So I can actually help you connect with JICA and WDD. They're actually working in this right now, this particular cause. So I think you should definitely collaborate with them, and this would be the perfect time to do it. Yeah.
So if you can please mentor her
Yes,
through
sure.
that, and Asif, if you can do that for her, and she can reach out to all of you, but that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience and for your kindness and for your questions. We'll take a quick group photo and let our wonderful panel leave. And if I can have the two startups here as well.